The mayor just joins us from Tumwa and Indianola, where you've been today, as many of you do, put forth a pretty ambitious travel schedule for the days ahead. If we can talk about some national matters here, President Trump will be here in a couple nights doing a rally over at Drake University. I don't presume that you two are going to get much private time to catch up and talk.
I doubt it.
But what would your message be for him as he gets ready to come here?
Well, I doubt that he would listen to anything I have to say. I don't think he's even listening to the American people at this point. Look, this is a president who has ignored what Americans want on everything from lifting wages to delivering family leave to just basic decency and integrity in the White House, and seems to just be operating in his own world. It's one of the reasons why I'm finding at our events, not just Democrats and independents, but more and more Republicans joining us who won't agree with me on everything, but can agree on the fact that this president no longer speaks for America.
We had Tom Steyer join us earlier this afternoon here, and he was talking about one of the issues that he wants Democrats to have better messaging, frankly, on to communicate to people is when it comes to the economy. Of course, obviously, he's making the case that he would be your party's best nominee when it comes to the economy. But for those Democrats who are looking at economic messages and they're still undecided at this point, what do you think you bring to this conversation?
Well, I'm a mayor of or have served as mayor of a city that's
You're unemployed
right here
now,
in the middle.
right?
I know, I'm still getting used to being a former mayor. But our city went through the same kind of economic blows that so many communities in Iowa have. We were a factory town, we lost our factories, we had to reimagine our future. And what I find is while this president's beating his chest about this great economy because the Dow Jones is looking good, it's not actually working out for so many people actually living here in the middle of the country. When your wages are barely going up, or even if they do go up, it's not keeping up with the cost of health, prescription drugs, saving for retirement, college. It shows you that Washington is measuring the wrong things. And when I'm president, we're going to measure how the economy is doing, not by the Dow Jones, but by the income growth of the 90%. A good economy to me is one where we actually feel it in our communities and in our lives. And in order to make sure we maintain that economy for the future, we've got to be ready to invest in our roads and bridges, in our kids and schools and teachers, in all of the things that make growth possible right here. And this administration is doing the reverse, threatening to cut all kinds of, they're even threatening to cut Social Security. What's that going to do for the ability of Americans to make it, no matter whether the economy in the headlines is looking up or looking down?
As we go around, we look inside these crowds who come out to hear you and your fellow candidates traveling around our state. Bernie Sanders had a lot of young people in there. Andrew Yang has a lot of young people. What's your argument and your message to the younger folks? If you have sometimes some more mature, middle-aged and more mature crowds, you have some young people too, but Bernie Sanders crowd, there are a lot of young people there. So what's your connection with them?
Well, my message is that the longer you're planning to be here, the more you have personally at stake in the decisions that are about to be made. Making sure we actually have action when it comes to climate change. Making sure we deliver an economy that's actually going to work for us. Making sure that we do something about issues like gun violence. And as the youngest candidate in the field, I take all of these issues personally because they're affecting my life too. None of this is theoretical for me. I belong to the generation that served in the forever wars. I belong to what could be the first ever generation to earn less than our parents if we don't do something to change this economy. I am powerfully motivated to make sure that we're ready for the future. And I see a lot of the politics here revolving around arguments from the 90s. It's time to turn the page and get going. Otherwise, it's just the same conversation that led us to this point.
We only have a half a minute left, but one of the connections that Sanders has with some of these younger people, frankly, is when he talks about tuition-free college, and you're not pushing that. Why not?
Well, what I'm offering is to make sure that college is affordable for everybody. Public college actually tuition-free for the first 80% of Americans by income. I just think that if you're in that top bracket, that top 10%, I still wish you well. I just think you ought to pay your own tuition because there are very real choices about how we spend every tax dollar, and we've got a responsibility to make sure that we're spending those dollars where they're going to make the biggest difference.
All right, Mayor, former Mayor, thanks for the time. We're going to continue our conversation on WHOTV.com.